Good morning, students. Okay, in the previous class, which lesson we are learning now? The world we live in. Previous class we learned about the earth and the representation of earth, that is the globe we learned. Today we are going to learn about poles of the earth. What are the poles? Okay. Have you seen the picture of this earth? Okay. And geographers, they consider as one imaginary line that pass in between these earth, that we call it as axis. It is tilted like this. In this way it is tilted and it is called axis. Have you seen that the globe rotates around a line passing through the center, and that line we call it as axis. Now actually this is an imaginary line. Actually it is not there. It's not real. An imaginary line is there. Based on this line, earth rotates on its own this axis. Okay, and consider this two ends. Two ends are here. These are called poles. What we call poles. And these end points are called what? Poles. And the topmost part, that we call it as North Pole. But it is North Pole. N-O-R-T-H. North Pole, and then this one South Pole. Bottommost part is called the South Pole. So there are two end points of this earth, and the topmost portion is called the North Pole, and the southmost part is called the South Pole. And what is axis? An imaginary line which passes through the earth. Actually it is not there, just we are considering like that. One imaginary line drawn in between this north and south pole is called what? Axis. Understood? And it is tilted. This is in a one side, not in the exact middle, just tilted in a tilted. Okay, that about poles and axis. Understood? So it's a round shape, and what are poles? The end points of this earth. And the topmost portion is called the North Pole, and the bottommost portion is called the South Pole. And that imaginary line passing through the center, that we call it as what? Axis. Understood? Like this. Like this. If you want to know, to locate a place on earth, we know about the latitudes and longitudes. Latitudes and longitudes. What are they? Latitudes and longitudes are some imaginary lines. Actually it's not there. They are imaginary lines drawn on the earth. Okay? And look at this. This is this type of, have you seen this type of lines drawn on a globe? Yes. And in this way also. Okay. This type of lines you can see in a globe. And actually it is not there. If we want to locate a place, we should know the longitudes and the latitudes. What are they? Latitudes, L-A-T-I-T-U-D-E-S, and longitudes, L-O-N-G-I-T-U-D-E-S, longitudes. What are they? Latitudes and longitudes. First we are learning about latitudes. First we are learning about latitudes. Understood? If we want to locate a place on Earth, we should know latitudes and longitudes. And what are they? They are the imaginary lines. And now we are knowing more about that. First we are learning about latitudes. What are they? So the outline of Earth is here. Okay. What we are learning now? We are learning about the latitudes. Okay. What is this? This is North Pole. Isn't it? And this is what? South Pole. And one imaginary line which drawn middle of the earth. Huh? One imaginary line drawn middle of the earth. That we call it as equator. What we call? Equator. E-Q-A-T-O-R. Equator. And this imaginary line divided the entire earth into two halves. Actually, this is passing through the middle. And you know that if a middle one line is passing through that divides the whole sphere into two equal halves. So, this equator, okay, this equator divided the earth into two equal halves. And this topmost portion is called northern hemisphere. What we call? Northern hemisphere. And the bottom portion is known as southern hemisphere. Southern hemisphere. Southern hemisphere. Understood? So, now we are learning about latitudes. What are they? For that I am telling about one imaginary line which drawn middle of the earth. And that we call it as, in which direction it is drawing? It is east-west direction. Which direction? East-west direction. That line is called what? Equator. That equator divides the earth into two equal halves. The top portion is called northern hemisphere. N-O-R-T-H-E-R-N. Northern hemispheres. Two equal hemispheres are here. Top portion is called the northern hemisphere. And the bottom portion is called the southern hemisphere. Understood? So actually, not only one line is there. So many lines are there. 180 lines are drawn in this way. That is like this. So, along the, means like the equator, so many lines are drawn from east to west direction. That imaginary lines are called latitudes. So, these lines are called what? Latitudes. Understood? So, what we call these? Latitudes. So, always this equator, degree we are telling the measure. So, equator always 0 degree. Which degree? 0 degree we calculate. And the next 15 degree. Next one 30 degree. Next one 45 degree. Next 60 degree. And here it is. That means north pole. That is 90 degree north. Okay. Like that in the same way here also. Okay. What? 50 degree north it is. 30 degree north it is. 45 degree north it is. And 60 degree north. Here also 15 degree south. Then 30 degree south, 45 degree south, one more line, 60 degree south, and here it is 90 degree. Actually, in the poles, 90 90 degree each. 90 degree north and 90 degree south. Understood? In this way, that imaginary line that passes from east to west of Earth, that we call it as what? Latitudes. What are latitudes? That latitudes are the imaginary lines that drawn parallel to the equator. Drawn parallel to the equator. Like the equator, it's drawn like this, in this way. So they are also called parallels. What we call? Parallels. P-A-R-A-L-L-E-L-S. Parallels. Latitudes or parallels. Understood? So, what I told now, which are the points we discussed? What is poles? Poles means the end points are called the poles. And what is axis? There is one imaginary line that drawn inside the earth. Based on that line, earth is rotating. And that line is called the axis. Understood? And we learned about latitudes. What are they? Latitudes means the lines drawn from east to west parallel to the equator. Equator means which divides the earth into two equal halves, hemispheres. The topmost portion is called the northern hemisphere and the bottom portion is called the southern hemisphere, and this is called the latitudes or parallels. Dismissed today, children. Thank you.
Latitude is an angular distance of a place north or south of the equator. Supposing I say Mumbai is 19 degrees north. This means Mumbai is 19 degrees north of the equator. Now, if a line were to be drawn from Mumbai on the globe to the center of the globe, then the line would make an angle of 19 degrees with the horizontal. Another angle of 19 degrees can be measured south of equator. So there are two 19 degrees, one in the north and other one in the south. So it must be clearly mentioned when I say 19 degrees, Mumbai is at 19 degrees north. The line of latitude is then drawn through Mumbai parallel to the equator. This parallel of latitude is 19 degree north latitude. Any place or point on this parallel of latitude would form an angle of 19 degree at the center. Every parallel of latitude is a circle. So there are 90 parallels of latitude in the northern hemisphere to the north of the equator. Similarly, there are 90 parallels of latitude in the southern hemisphere to the south of the equator. Now, all the lines of latitude are not drawn on a globe for practical reasons. Because if I draw all the lines, the map would appear very crowded. So what are the points to be noted? First thing is, a latitude is an angular distance of a place north or south of the equator. There are 180 parallels of latitude. Each parallel of latitude is a circle. All the parallels of latitude are not of equal length. The circles become smaller as we move towards the pole. The equator, that is at 0 degrees, is the most important latitude and the largest circle that can be drawn on the globe. It divides the earth into northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. Now the distance between any two parallels of latitude is always 111 kilometers. The North Pole and the South Pole are fixed points and serve as basic points of reference.